All right, so we're diving deep into The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben
Oh,
Horowitz.
yeah.
This book, it really takes us through his crazy journey with Lied Cloud and Opsware.
Hmm.
And let me tell you, it's a wild ride. We're going to break down the big lessons he learned about leadership,
Yeah,
building teams,
absolutely.
and navigating the tech world. You ready for this?
Let's do it. I think what's so fascinating about this book is how brutally honest Horowitz is
Yeah.
about, his struggles and the tough decisions he had to make. It's
Mm.
incredibly relatable no matter where you are in your career.
I think so too.
Yeah.
So let's start with Ben Horowitz's background. He grew up in Berkeley, which isn't
Right.
exactly like the heart of Silicon Valley, right?
You're right, and that's actually crucial to understanding his journey. I think growing
Yeah.
up in Berkeley,
Okay.
a place that's known for its diverse communities and social activism, really shaped his worldview early on.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't all, sunshine and roses either.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about this incident with a red wagon,
Oh,
which I think really highlights the kind of ethical dilemmas
yeah.
that leaders face,
Yeah.
even at a young age.
Yeah, the story with his brother's friend.
Exactly.
What?
What happened there?
So a friend of his brother dared him to take this red wagon from another kid.
Oh, wow.
And the challenge escalated to like spitting on the kid and using a racial slur if he resisted.
That's
It's pretty intense.
heavy stuff.
Yeah, and it's a testament to Horowitz's character that he refused to do it.
Mm,
He recognized the injustice even as a young child.
right.
And I think this sense of morality and fairness that he developed early on would later influence
Yeah.
his leadership style in the high-stakes world of Silicon Valley.
It's interesting how those early experiences can shape your values.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's fast forward to Horowitz's time at Netscape.
Okay.
We're talking mid-90s internet boom, the wild west of tech.
Oh, yeah.
What was it like for him to be in the thick of it all?
Can you imagine the energy at Netscape back then? Horowitz was clearly thrilled to be part of this revolutionary company.
He quickly rose through the ranks and ended up managing the enterprise web server product line.
Wow.
Talk about pressure.
I bet. And wasn't there that infamous FU Mark email that he received?
Oh, yes. Netscape stock was plummeting, and Mark Andreessen, in a moment of frustration,
Oh, yeah.
sent Horowitz this scathing email blaming the server product management for the company's troubles.
Wow. Talk about a tough boss. Did that make Horowitz want to jump ship?
He considered it, but instead of giving up, he used it as a learning experience.
Oh, wait.
It forced him to develop resilience and a thick-skin qualities that would prove invaluable later on.
Yeah.
And this brings us to LoudCloud, a company that Horowitz co-founded with Andreessen.
Right. And they decided to go public right as the dot-com bubble burst. Talk about terrible timing.
I know
That's-
what it looked like for them.
It was a true test of their resilience.
Okay,
Think about it. You pour your heart and soul into building a company. You're
Yeah.
finally ready for the big leagues, and then the market crashes.
Hurdle.
It doesn't get much tougher than that. How do they even cope with that level of pressure?
They developed this incredibly dark sense of humor.
Okay.
They joke that things are always darkest before they go completely black.
Oh my gosh.
That gallows humor, while a bit morbid,
Yeah.
was their coping mechanism.
Okay.
What I find interesting is that it reveals a lot about Horowitz's leadership style.
Right.
He doesn't shy away from the tough stuff, and he uses humor to keep himself and his team going
Yeah.
when things get rough.
So they go public, the market tanks, and then what did eating shit actually look like for them?
It meant customers were leaving, their cash was dwindling, and Horowitz was desperately trying to raise more money.
Mm.
They needed a whopping $50 million just to reach the point where they wouldn't need more funding.
Wow.
They were facing a full-blown existential crisis.
I can only imagine the weight of that responsibility. But I read that he had a secret weapon. His mentor, Bill Campbell.
Ah, yes, Bill Campbell. Now, this is where things get really interesting. He was a legendary figure in Silicon Valley, a mentor to countless CEOs,
Ooh, yeah.
including Steve Jobs. For Horowitz, he was a lifeline, a voice of reason amidst the chaos.
Horowitz talks about the two kinds of friends everyone needs, someone to celebrate with and someone to call when you're in deep trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And Campbell seems to have been both for him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Campbell was there to celebrate the wins, but he was also the person Horowitz could turn to
Yeah.
when everything was falling apart.
Right.
This support system is something I think every leader needs.
Yeah.
Someone to help them navigate those difficult decisions and provide guidance when they need it most.
Speaking of difficult decisions, there's this powerful anecdote about a doctor saying he's dead. What was that all about?
So Horowitz was struggling to keep LoudCloud afloat.
Yeah.
and went to Campbell for advice.
Okay.
Campbell, instead of offering direct solutions, shared this story
Mm-hmm.
about a young doctor who failed to recognize that a patient was beyond saving.
Okay.
He kept trying to revive the patient, even when it was clear that it was futile.
So what was the takeaway for Horowitz? Was Campbell telling him to give up on LoudCloud?
Not exactly. He was subtly suggesting that LoudCloud might be in a similar situation,
Okay.
facing an inescapable fate. It was a wake-up call for Horowitz,
Wow.
a moment of brutal honesty that forced him to confront the possibility of failure.
Wow. That's a lot to process. So did he give up?
No. Instead, he took Campbell's words as a challenge.
Okay.
He realized he needed to come up with a radical solution, a plan B, to save the company.
All right.
And this is where the story takes another turn.
So we left off with Ben Horowitz facing like a major crossroads with LoudCloud.
Yeah,
He had to come up with a plan B and fast.
that's right. And this is where his resilience really shines through.
Okay.
Instead of throwing in the towel, he pivots.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us to the EDS crisis, a make-or-break moment for LoudCloud.
EDS was their biggest customer, right?
Exactly.
What happened there?
EDS accounted for a staggering 90% of LoudCloud's revenue,
Oh, wow.
and they were about to pull the plug. Can you imagine the pressure?
Oh.
If they lost EDS, it was game over.
It sounds like one of those moments where you either sink or swim.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Horowitz chose to swim.
Okay.
He rallied his team with this must-win mentality.
I remember reading about that team meeting where he laid it all out.
Yeah.
No sugarcoating, just pure honesty.
He basically told them, this is not a scenario where an excuse will do. This is a must-win.
Wow.
Everyone in that room understood the gravity of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of panicking, Horowitz did what he does best.
Okay.
He broke down the problem into manageable steps
Mm-hmm.
and created a 60-day plan to save the account.
So it was more than just working harder. It was about strategic thinking and creative problem solving.
Precisely. And this is where things get really interesting on a technical level.
Okay.
Horowitz had this brilliant insight to acquire a company called Tangram.
Okay.
Now, Tangram specialized in software for managing data centers.
Hold on, can we pause for a second? I think it's worth explaining what data center automation actually means, especially for those who might not be familiar with the technical side of things.
Great point. Back then, data centers were these complex beasts
Okay.
with tons of servers and hardware that needed constant attention.
Mm-hmm.
Data center automation was all about using software to simplify the management of these systems,
Okay.
making them more efficient and less prone to errors.
So it was a huge time saver and a game changer for companies dealing with massive amounts of data.
Exactly. And that's where Tangram's technology came in.
Okay.
Horowitz saw the potential of integrating their software into LoudCloud's offerings,
Mm-hmm.
providing EDS with exciting value, as he put it.
Okay.
It was a risky move, a bit of a gamble,
Right.
but it paid off.
They managed to save the EDS account, but
Yeah.
what about LoudCloud? What happened to their original cloud vision?
Well, they realized that the market wasn't quite ready for cloud computing on a large scale.
Okay.
So they made the difficult decision to pivot away from that business
Right.
and focus on what they had learned from the EDS crisis,
Mm-hmm.
data center automation. And that's how Opsware was born.
It's a great example of turning a near-death experience into a new opportunity.
Yeah.
But I imagine that transition wasn't easy, especially for the employees.
You're right. There was a lot of uncertainty and fear.
Yeah.
But instead of sweeping things under the rug, Horowitz was incredibly transparent with his team.
Okay.
He called an off-site meeting, laid everything out on the table, and even offered new stock grants.
Wow.
He gave people a choice: stay and fight for this new vision,
Mm-hmm.
or move on.
I'm curious, how did the employees react to that?
It's amazing, actually. Only 2 employees decided to leave.
Really?
The vast majority chose to stick with Horowitz and Opsware.
Wow.
It speaks volumes about the trust he had built with his team
Yeah.
and his ability to inspire them even in the face of major change.
So they abandoned the cloud business launch, Opsware.
Right.
And then what? Was it smooth sailing from there?
Not quite. Remember, we're still in the post.com crash era.
Right.
And to make matters worse, a fierce competitor emerges, BladeLogic. They were winning deals left and right.
Mm-hmm.
And Opsware's stock price plummeted to $2.90 per share.
Ouch. That's a tough pill to swallow after all that hard work. What did Horowitz do?
He did what any great leader would do. He refused to give up.
Okay.
He gathered his engineering team and delivered what he calls his one bullet left in the gun speech. Have you ever faced a moment like that in your career? One where it feels like everything is on the line.
I think we all have those moments,
Yeah,
those defining challenges that push us to our limits.
exactly. And Horowitz's speech in that moment was incredibly powerful.
Okay.
He didn't sugarcoat the situation. He told them straight up,
Yeah.
we're getting our asses kicked.
Oh my.
He acknowledged their fears,
Mm-hmm.
but he also reminded them of their potential.
Okay.
He challenged them to give it their all,
Yeah.
to dedicate the next 6 months of their lives to building a product that would beat Blade Logic.
That's a big ask. What was the team's response?
They rose to the occasion.
Mm.
In the book, he shares a story about an engineer named Ted,
Mm-hmm.
who years later told Horowitz that his speech inspired him to work harder than he ever had before.
Wow.
That's the power of authenticity in leadership.
It's amazing how a leader's honesty and vulnerability can ignite a team's passion.
Yeah.
So they're building this new product, but was it all smooth sailing from there?
Not exactly.
Oh.
They faced another hurdle, the weight of existing customer demands on the product roadmap.
Okay.
Horowitz realized they were so focused on meeting current needs
Mm-hmm.
that they were neglecting the innovation needed to beat Blade Logic.
So how did they decide what to build? How did they balance those competing priorities?
Horowitz made the tough call to prioritize features that would give them a competitive edge.
Okay.
Even if it meant delaying some customer requests,
Mm-hmm.
he understood that they needed to ship a product,
Right.
get it into the market, and learn from the feedback.
Right.
It's a lesson in agility and adaptability, especially in the fast-paced world of tech.
It sounds like he was constantly balancing the needs of today with the vision for tomorrow. Did this new product, this one bullet, ultimately save Opsware?
It played a huge role,
Okay.
but the story doesn't end there.
Okay.
Virtualization technology emerged,
Mm-hmm.
and Horowitz saw an opportunity to revisit that cloud computing vision he had to abandon with LoudCloud.
Oh, wow.
Remember, he's always thinking ahead,
Yeah.
always looking for the next big thing.
So even with a successful product and a growing market, he's not content to rest on his laurels.
Nope.
What happened next?
Well, even success has its challenges.
Okay.
Horowitz faced a shareholder activist who demanded his removal, claiming his ego was out of control.
Wow. Talk about adding insult to injury.
I know, right?
It seems like there's never a dull moment in the world of tech startups.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
But through it all, Horowitz remained focused on building Opsware into a formidable company. And eventually they caught the eye of a certain tech giant.
I'm guessing this is where HP enters the picture.
HP wanted to acquire Opsware,
Okay.
but Horowitz, ever the savvy negotiator,
Yeah.
didn't just accept the first offer. He played his cards, right?
Okay.
Even hinting that he had another offer on the table.
He knew his worth and wasn't afraid to negotiate.
Yeah.
What was the final outcome?
HP upped their offer to $14.25 per share,
Wow.
which translated to a whopping $165 billion in cash.
That's incredible.
It was a huge win, a testament to everything they had built.
It must have been bittersweet to sell the company he had poured so much of himself into.
It was. He describes feeling physically ill after the deal closed.
Really?
He couldn't sleep. He had cold sweats,
Wow.
even cried. It was a mix of relief, sadness,
Yeah.
and maybe even a bit of emptiness.
All right.
But he also recognized that it was the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
They achieved something extraordinary, built something from scratch,
Right.
and weathered countless storms.
What a journey. But the hard thing about hard things isn't just about Horowitz's personal story.
Right.
He shares a wealth of insights about building and leading a world-class company. Insights that are relevant to anyone, even those outside the tech world.
Totally agree. He talks about the importance of training,
Yes.
transparency, clear communication,
Mm-hmm.
and fostering a culture of excellence.
Those are important.
All essential ingredients for any successful organization.
This is a good point to pause and let all that sink in for our listeners.
Okay.
We've followed Ben Horowitz from his Berkeley days to the acquisition of Opsware. What a ride.
What a ride.
But there's still so much to unpack, especially when it comes to the practical leadership lessons
Right.
we can all learn from his story.
I agree. In the next segment, we'll delve into those leadership lessons,
Okay.
exploring everything from building trust and managing A players
Yes.
to navigating difficult conversations and knowing when it's time to let go.
Welcome back. We've been on quite a journey with Ben Horowitz, haven't we?
We have, from his kind of unconventional upbringing in Berkeley
Yeah.
to the ups and downs of LoudCloud and then the ultimate triumph of Opsware.
Right.
I mean, it's clear that his story is just full of valuable lessons for anyone in a leadership position.
Absolutely. And what's remarkable is how he takes those experiences and turns them into practical advice.
Yeah?
Advice that's applicable whether you're running a tech company or leading a team
Hmm.
or just navigating your own career path.
Absolutely.
So let's dive into those leadership lessons.
Okay.
One of the themes that keeps coming up is the importance of building trust and loyalty. How does Horowitz approach this?
It all boils down to honesty and transparency.
Hmm.
He firmly believes that CEOs should tell it like it is,
Mm-hmm.
even when the news is bad. Remember those tough conversations we talked about?
Yeah.
The FU Mark email?
Oh, yeah.
The brutal honesty with his team during the EDS crisis?
Right.
Even having to demote a loyal friend.
Yeah.
These are all examples of his commitment to transparency,
Yeah.
even when it's uncomfortable.
He's not afraid to ruffle feathers or have those difficult conversations.
Nope.
Do you think that's part of what makes him such an effective leader?
I think it's essential. Building trust requires vulnerability
Mm-hmm.
and authenticity. People can sense when a leader is being genuine,
Yeah.
even when they're delivering tough news. It's about respecting your team enough to be honest with them,
Right.
even when it's hard.
And speaking of respecting your team, Horowitz has some strong opinions on hiring and managing A players.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of the key takeaways there?
Well, he's a big believer in having a rigorous hiring process and sticking to it,
Okay.
even when you're desperate to fill a role.
Yeah.
He emphasizes the importance of defining clear criteria for each position
Mm.
and using those criteria to guide the interview process.
It's about finding the right fit, not just filling a seat.
Exactly.
Mm.
And once you've found those A players,
Right.
you need to manage them effectively.
Right.
Horowitz is a strong advocate for giving and receiving feedback regularly.
Okay.
He talks about being direct but not mean
Yeah.
and focusing on the issues, not the person.
That's a delicate balance, isn't it?
It is. But it's a skill that every leader needs to develop.
Right.
And it's something that Horowitz, through his own trials and errors, learned to master.
He even talks about the importance of seeking out feedback from your team, even if it's critical.
That's right.
Oh.
He believes that good leaders are always learning,
Mm-hmm.
always seeking to improve.
Yeah.
And that requires being open to feedback,
Yeah.
even when it's tough to hear.
It's about having that humility, that willingness to acknowledge that you don't have all the answers.
I think that it's a key takeaway from his story. He's incredibly successful,
Right.
but he's also incredibly self-aware.
Yeah.
He knows his strengths, but he also acknowledges his weaknesses.
Mm.
And that allows him to grow as a leader.
Another lesson that really resonated with me is the importance of recognizing when it's time to move on,
Oh, yeah.
whether it's from a specific project, a role, or even a company.
He learned this the hard way with LoudCloud.
Right.
It was incredibly difficult for him to let go of that original cloud vision.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it was the right decision.
It-
It freed him up to focus on Opsware, which turned out to be a much bigger success.
It takes courage to admit when something isn't working and to pivot to a new direction.
It does. And it's a decision that many leaders struggle with.
Right.
We can get attached to our ideas, our projects, our
Yeah.
companies. But sometimes letting go is the most strategic
Right.
and the most courageous thing we can do.
And he eventually had to make the difficult decision to sell Opsware even though it was thriving.
Yes, and that speaks to his ability to make tough choices,
Mm-hmm.
even when they're emotionally challenging.
Yeah.
He recognized that selling to HP was the right move for both him and the company,
Right.
even though it meant saying goodbye to something he'd built from the ground up.
He even talks about how physically and emotionally draining that experience was.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that leadership isn't just about making the right calls.
Right.
It's about having the resilience to deal with the fallout,
Yeah.
the emotional toll of those decisions.
Exactly. He doesn't sugarcoat the challenges of leadership. He's honest about the loneliness, the pressure,
Yeah.
the sleepless nights, the difficult conversations.
But he also provides some insights into how he copes with those challenges, how he builds resilience.
Yeah.
What are some of the techniques he uses to stay grounded and centered amidst the chaos?
He talks about the importance of having a strong support system.
Okay.
Mentors, friends, family,
Yeah.
people you can confide in
Right.
and rely on for advice and perspective.
It's that reminder that you don't have to go it alone,
Yes.
that it's okay to ask for help.
Right. And he also talks about the importance of getting your thoughts out of your head,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's through writing, talking to someone you trust,
Yeah.
or simply taking some time for reflection.
Okay.
It's about processing those difficult emotions and finding healthy ways to manage the stress.
This deep dive has been incredible.
It has.
Ben Horowitz's journey is a reminder that success is rarely linear.
Right.
It's full of twists and turns, setbacks and triumphs.
And what I find so compelling is how he extracts those leadership lessons from his experiences.
Yeah.
Lessons that are relevant to all of us,
Yeah.
regardless of our industry or career stage.
He challenges us to be bold, to be resilient, to be honest, and to never stop learning.
Absolutely.
And he reminds us that leadership is a journey, not a destination.
Right.
It's about constantly striving to improve, to learn from our mistakes,
Yeah.
and to build something meaningful.
Well said.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, what resonates most strongly with you? What are the leadership challenges you're facing right now?
Yeah.
And how can you apply these lessons to your own journey?
That's a great question to ponder.
Ben Horowitz's story is an inspiration.
It is.
A reminder that we all have the potential to achieve great things, even in the face of adversity. So go out there, lead with courage,
Yes.
and never be afraid to embrace the hard things.
Love it.
That's a wrap on this deep dive. Until next time,
Okay.
keep learning and keep leading.